All right, enough of the trolling in chat. So, Just Stop Oil did it again. Let's see what they did this time.
Women did not get the vote by voting. It is time for deeds and not words. It is time to just stop oil.
Politics is failing us. Politics failed women in 1914. If millions will die due to new oil and gas licensing, millions! If we love history, if we love art, and if we love our families, we must just stop oil.
Please go into the next room. Please go to the next room, please.
Please go to the next show, please. Please. Groovalicious hates it. So many people hate it. And see, a lot of people are against it. Even people who are leftists, who, just like me, are leftists. And people, for example, PF Porlock calls them morons. Groovalicious says this is so frustrating. Yeah, destroy literally anything else. Why art? All right, all these things. Yesterday, I went on Tom Nicholas's stream. I actually called in after raiding Tom Nicholas. I called in and we talked a little bit about why this is such a controversial topic. With Tom, we talked about two things. One of them is, why does it get under people's skin so much? And one of them is because one of the reasons is because art is such it seems like it belongs to everyone. And when you attack something such as art, you're attacking the commons. You're attacking what belongs to everyone. And not everyone, just people who live today, but it's everyone who have lived in the past and in the future. It's like a common property to all that is not even spatial and not even temporal. And we also talked about the importance of originals when it came to art and paintings. And I'll start with that very quickly because I do believe that it affects my personal opinion on these actions. First and foremost, I don't care that much for original paintings in terms of art. I perceive them as maybe historical relics, maybe cultural relics, but I don't see them as art anymore. I'll give you an example. I gave that example with music yesterday with Tom Nicholas, and I said that with music, digital reproductions of music, to me, they're just as valuable as the first recording of that music if the digital reproduction is the same as the original recording. Because to me, what's important is not the material or the essence of the material of the art, right? What's important to me is what it says, its story, its message, its values, its ideas. All these things are what make the art, well, art. It's not, at least to me, the brushstrokes. It's not the materiality of the work. It's more the concepts that are at play with the painting, with the image, which are completely separated from the original artwork. Now, that being said, I believe the importance of an original artwork kind of fades away once it's digitally reproduced, especially when it's reproduced to a fidelity that even the human eye could not perceive, right? That's something I talked about with Tom Nicholas as well, right? You see the Mona Lisa at the Louvre, and turns out it's a copy because the original is like in a, I don't know, conspiracy. The original one is actually stored in an undisclosed location. The one that you saw was a fake. But did your appreciation of it change? If by all standards, it looks the same, right? The same mysterious eyes, they're the same. No, the same mysterious smile is the same. And you can say that about Guernica as well by Picasso, right? What's important is not necessarily the originality of the image, not originality in the terms of being like unique, but yeah, also in terms of being unique, but more in terms of being the only one out there. Now that we have that out of the way, it's no coincidence that they've attacked Rockabye Venus by Velázquez. For those who don't know, Rockabye Venus by Velázquez, this painting right here, I made a video about it. It was slashed a shit ton of times. It was damaged a lot more in 1914 by, I believe, suffragettes. And the person who did that also quoted the fact that a lot of people were looking at it through the male gaze, though they didn't call it the male gaze because it was in 1914. But yeah, Mary Richardson attacked it. In the speech of Just Stop Oil, what they say is, you know, people have been failing women back then, or people have been failing women. Why would they say that when they're trying to just stop oil? Well, they're saying that because there's been a history of this happening to that very, very painting. We could say, you know, Mary Richardson was wrong or whatever, but the case is, the fact is, the suffragettes did get what they wanted, and they didn't do it by pleading or by begging, you know, please give us the right to vote. Please, would you be so kind to give me the right to vote? No, they got it by force. They didn't just slash some paintings. They did a lot of direct action, violent actions that a lot of people hated, but they had to do that or else they weren't getting the right to vote. So there is a history, and what Just Stop Oil is saying is we are continuing that history, but instead of fighting for the right for women to vote, we're fighting for the preservation of the world, quite literally. And I made a video a year ago when the first, well, I don't even know if it was the first, it's the Van Gogh one being vandalized. I made a video a year ago about it. And it's like pretty short, 7 minutes. We're not going to watch it. I don't like watching my own videos on stream because it's kind of weird. But go watch it if you want to know more about my how I feel about it. But I really don't care, especially if it's glass that they're breaking. Also, if Rockabye Venus was able to recover from this, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Even if it wasn't fine, who gives a fuck? Honestly, I don't. I really don't. We have so many reproductions of that artwork. I would be more sad about an artwork that wasn't reproduced, that wasn't taken, you know, pictures of, that would be destroyed, right? That would actually be destroyed, not just damaged, actually destroyed. That could be sad. But again, the goals here are to disturb. In this case, they didn't even disturb, like the effects of their disturbance didn't do much on the painting, right? But it was very effective. And even if you say, oh, we're against it, we don't like it, it's not meant to make you comfortable. It's not meant to make you like it. It's not. I think I quote, this is Emmeline Pankhurst, suffragette, saying, "We are not destroying orchid houses, breaking windows, cutting telegraph wires, injuring golf greens in order to win the approval of the people who were attacked. If the general public were pleased with what we are doing, that would be a proof that our warfare is ineffective. We are not fighting you because you played golf. We are fighting you at all. We're not fighting you at all, but trying to stir you up. Tell us you sympathize with us. We are determined, even at the price of your sympathy, to stir you up to do something." That's it. Stirring you up to do something. I think that's going to be my case. Very short, but I want to interact with chat a bit more because I've been going on a monologue. So I'm going to read everything that you're saying. Oh, and by the way, for those who don't know, if I make a segment, I'll probably have to put that at the beginning of the segment. Yes, I'm a streamer, anarchist streamer, whatever. I guess that's how I'm going to identify myself. But first and foremost, I make a living off of a YouTube channel on art history. So every week I look at art. I've been doing that for a couple of years now. So I love art. I'm an art person. Would I say I'm an art person before an anarchist? I think those two are very equal. But yeah, I love art. I'm not someone who's trying to minimize the importance of art. Quite on the contrary, my whole career on YouTube is to make art accessible and make people enjoy art more than they would otherwise. But why do we care if it's just a glass? People care a lot, even though it's just a glass, because it's attacking history, attacking culture. It's the closest thing we have today to some kind of religious artifact in a way, or something that's sacred. We don't have much sacred things anymore as a secular / atheist society. We don't really give a fuck if someone, I was gonna say if someone burns a cross, but that has another, significant, Yeah, it's different. We don't give a fuck if someone, I don't know, does something against a religious artifact, but we do care if someone does something to a cultural or an artistic artifact, because those things are the most sacred things we have today, because they're now the things that connect us to the past and to a semblance of unity between among ourselves. Back then it was religion. It's not there anymore. So Vamosani says they're just vandalists. They did do vandalism, that's for sure. That I could not disagree with you more. I could not agree with you more. Yeah, that's what I meant. There are vandals. I want to make a segment about that eventually. You know, we'll put a pin into that, Vamosani. If you're still there, please remind me after this segment to maybe talk about vandalism really, really quickly, to make another segment after this one, okay? I care more about the environment than that work, says maybe an anarchist. Yeah, I think most people do. I don't think people who are angry at the artwork being vandalized, or you know, at the glass being vandalized, are necessarily saying we prefer the artwork to the environment. That would be mischaracterizing people's arguments. I think most people still care more about the environment than that artwork. They just don't think that, attacking that artwork or breaking it does much to help the environment. I disagree. At this point, I think it's important. Whatever it takes. Okay, maybe not whatever it takes. But like, when it comes to the annihilation of our planet through ecological catastrophe, I think stirring people up with, again, not whatever it takes, but with, what it takes to stir people up is important. Yeah, it's a political theater, Temer. I'll agree with that. Temer says kind of a jerk thing to do, but it's just glass and a bit of political theater. Yeah, it's a jerk thing to do. But yeah, as the suffragettes were saying, like they were ruining golf courses, cutting telegraph lines, breaking windows. Those are jerk things to do. Any vandalism is a jerk thing to do, honestly. This kind of protesting is not effective since it doesn't give you the support of the community, and politicians won't even care. There must be a better way. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to do something with and gain the support of the community through it, right? It's hard to have politicians care in any case. I mean, there might be a better way, but how, right? If you want, you have to disturb people, as Pankhurst was saying, right? I believe so too. You have to shake people up, disturb them, take them out of their routine. But how do you do that? People will always hate being taken out of their routines. They'll hate being shaken. They'll hate being interrupted in their daily life. So no matter what you're trying to do, as soon as you try to break with the status quo in any way that, that's like trying to get attention, people won't like it. I don't think so. Getting the support of the community can be extremely hard if the community doesn't want to doesn't want to hear what you have to say. It's one of the reasons why the suffragettes did what they have to do. It's because, they could give food to like poor people and try to get the support of the community by showing that they're great, right? But people don't give a fuck about that. They just ignore it. Politicians might not ignore it. They might thank you for doing their jobs. That's the best you're going to get. Yeah, if the environment is destroyed, then it doesn't matter if the artwork exists or not. We can go back to, I might have mentioned it in my video as well. What's it called? Who's that? The Road by Cormac McCarthy, wait, it wasn't The Road, it was Children of Men. Yeah, I said The Road by Cormac McCarthy, but it's not. Yeah, Gefilte Fisk, thank you. He mentions, and it's mentioned in Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher, the kind of paradox or the strange fact that powerful people will still cling to art even though we're at the end of the world, even though there's nothing after, even though we're preserving art for not much reason because there won't be a next generation to look at it. He's kind of, underlining this paradox. Yeah, Krenna. Krenna says they should be targeting fossil fuel infrastructure. And Gefilte Fisk says they are, but it doesn't get the same attention, which is true. Magna says, so cutting my arm off now won't matter if I'm going to be dead at a later time. Different. Very different. There's a name for that fallacy. There's a name for that fallacy, which is when people do that for governments as well. When people try to compare a broader social organism with an individual organism. We know that we're finite. We understand that we try to benefit as much of our lives during that finite moment, right? But the thing is, for governments or for societies, we have to think of a time scale on a larger scale, I guess. For example, this kind of fallacy is brought up a lot. People believe that, like, for example, a government cannot get indebted as much as it does right now, because like a good family father, I think that at least that's the expression we use in French, like someone who has a family cannot get indebted, and therefore a government shouldn't be indebted because that means they're financially unhealthy. But the thing is, a government can be indebted, and it can be important for a government to be indebted, because not only do they have to answer to the family that happens now, but to future generations, to like a lot of future generations. While a family, yes, they have to answer to a future generation, but getting indebted as a family and getting indebted as a government is very, very different. Groovalicious says, yes, but this form of protest is ineffective. It's not necessary to destroy art when you could destroy something else. But the thing is, it seems to be just art that actually does something when it comes to like destroying something. Destroying something else, either it be sabotaging some oil plant or whatever, all these things don't get the attention that destroying art does. And measuring how effective a form of protest is something that's really, really hard to do. Measuring the efficacy of an action is almost impossible. For example, did Mary Richardson, who did this, did it negatively or positively impact the suffragette movement? We can't tell. We don't know. Sometimes we can try to see a correlation between an event and public support, or see how that might have brought actions or not. But it's really hard to tell exactly what it is that brought actions or that changed something socially, because there's so many different things that can affect it. There's so many different parameters. Karna says, in this case, I don't agree that any attention is good attention. That's a good debate to have. And I agree that not any attention is good attention. And I think that you can definitely have the luxury of pondering if, this is good attention, if this isn't. But in our case, it's kind of a situation of urgency. There's definitely a situation of urgency. And there doesn't seem to be much going on to resolve that urgency. Not at all, actually. Well, there are some things, but those things are not actually addressing the problem of climate change, just trying to slowly adapt to it. But it's not actually answering to the question or trying to resolve the underlying reasons for climate change. It's liberal reforms at best, which, as we know, are not going to fix anything. So at this point, what do? Do we wait for something to happen? Do we build communities strong enough to maybe... That's not going to do much. What are we supposed to do? Personally, I see someone attacking art. If people are angry at it, I defend them. I defend the people who attack the art, because I think that's the best way to push the conversation forward. We say, we are in a state of emergency, and we're not taking that seriously. I don't think that criticizing people who attack a piece of glass in front of an artwork, but even if it was an artwork, I don't think criticizing these people actually benefits anyone. If you think that it actually hurts the movement, if you accept the underlying presupposition of the movement that says we have a couple of years, maybe not even, to solve climate change or to prevent its worst effects, then you should agree that we don't have time to go, all right, well, we got to be a bit nicer about, we got to be a bit smarter about doing this because some people might not agree with us or agree with this technique. Fuck it. No, fuck it. I don't think we have the luxury of thinking about how people will take it. Shake people up. If they don't agree with these techniques, at least they'll be shaken up to think, well, yeah, it is a problem. Because if everything crumbles around them as a result of people saying, holy shit, we gotta save the earth, they might be against the crumbling, but they might be even more sensitive to the environment being getting destroyed. At least that's my hope. It gets attention. I think that is what we're going for. It is important that those that uphold the system know that we are outraged and aren't going to just sit and let our world be destroyed. Yeah, the more of these kinds of actions that are going to happen, the more that we're going to have to do something about it. It's either we're going to have to repress environmentalists, or we are going to have to actually do something about climate change. If you're going to have to repress environmentalists, I think by doing that, you're already putting the environment as a number one political question on the political sphere, which is already something important to do. You don't think that public support is important? Asks Krena. I do believe that public support is important, but let's say there's an emergency and public support, they're for it, but they're kind of nonchalant about it, right? Or they don't know what they can do about it because they're powerless, which they are. They are powerless. Are we supposed to wait or try to get them to give more public support to the cause of environmentalism? Do you think that's on the time frame that we're looking at? Do you think that's even possible or feasible? I don't think so. I think the strategy, and that's the strategy of just stop oil, is to bring climate change at the forefront of the debate. Even if it's about their tactics, even if it's about, hey, we got to stop these pesky environmentalists, we're talking about climate change. And that's what we need to do. And you know what's great about having people talk about climate change is that, yes, they might talk about it in good or in bad, negative or positive, but they'll never talk about a negative, about climate change. They might try to deny it, but nobody's going to say, hey, climate change is a good thing, right? If you get people to talk about it, all they can do is the tactics of environmentalists are wrong. But when they talk about climate change, they're not going to be negative about it unless they deny it. Oh, Grivalicious says, I've changed my whole outlook on this situation. You're so smart, Sean. You've convinced me. Thank you. Wow. Silverlight42 says, stirring people up when they have nowhere to turn for an organized opposition, though, will only likely funnel them to invalid solutions. I think that is a first-time chatter, Silverlight42, actually a really good concern. Very happy to see that you're a first-time chatter with such a magnificent input. That is true. It's hard to, when they feel powerless without an opposition, organized opposition. I'll have to think about that. You're right. Are terrorists the ultimate protesters? Zeoduck, unironically, terrorists are revolutionaries that failed. That's it. Terrorists, whether they're the ideology that they're fighting for is right or wrong, they're revolutionaries that fail, right? The founding fathers of America would have been called terrorists if they failed. Any revolution that has happened in the history of humanity, if these revolutionists had failed or these revolutionaries had failed, they would become terrorists. And every terrorist in the history of humanity, had they won, they'd be revolutionaries. Yeah, I don't mean be nicer. I mean focusing our efforts on corporations. Yeah, but very often when you hit corporations, people don't care that much. It's not covered by the media, is it? I've known people personally who might have or might have not splashed and broken windows of banks, splashed banks with like red paint to signify blood, or broken windows of banks. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a fuck. It's not mentioned at all in the media. It's not even newsworthy at all. PF Porlock says, destroying art in the UK won't help the planet much. If the UK goes oil-free, it would make almost zero difference. The countries who pollute the most, like China, India, Brazil, don't care about because fossil fuels are too important. I don't think it's about necessarily the UK. I think it's about sparking outrage and conversation and action, to not let it be isolated. And I don't think it's necessarily about being oil free. I agree that, if the UK goes oil free, it will almost make zero difference. I agree with that. Even if the whole world goes oil free, the problem is not the oil at all. Well, it is part of the problem, but it's not the whole problem. Just stopping oil is not going to stop climate change, or it's not going to prevent the world from getting worse. And yeah, it's true that China, India, Brazil do produce more CO2, but at the same time, if we want to change things, we can't just sit on our hands and say, well, China is the big bad, so we can't do anything about it, or we can't just wait on China to do something, or India to do something, or Brazil to do something. I think our best bet is to actually try to change so that this can kind of snowball in other areas of the world. Again, we're sort of desperate. Tummy of Full of Soul says, General, do you have a favorite painting? I don't, but I do have preferred paintings. Maybe not one specifically. How would you feel if it were destroyed, completely destroyed, genuinely irreparably destroyed by Just Stop Oil? I don't think I would care that much. I might even like it even more. These protests are actually adding history to each of these paintings. If anything, they're adding value to these paintings. Now everybody has heard Rocket by Venus. Even people who've never given a fuck about art history now know about Rocket by Venus. Some of you might have not known it, and now you know it, and you know that it has in the past been vandalized by a suffragette and has been vandalized now. It's part of the history. It gives value, and it gives even more history and interest to that painting. And if anything, I believe that that's what paintings are valuable for, right? If a painting just sits in a museum and is not engaged with anymore with history, it can just die. For example, I'll give you the best example. My brain just clicked two and two together. Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa was not, I won't say it was irrelevant, but you know what made it super, super fucking famous? It was the fact that it got stolen. All right, stealing artwork, that's really bad. We all know that. It's very selfish. It makes it so that nobody can enjoy it anymore, especially at a time when you couldn't reproduce the Mona Lisa. But after it was recovered, it became the most famous painting in the world for the rest of eternity. I don't think it will ever be triumphed. We hope, I'm crossing my fingers, that it'll be triumphed, but I don't think it will. And that's all because it was interacted with. It was pulled back from history and into contemporary conversation. And that's what made the Mona Lisa popular. So I don't think it would necessarily, I think if one of my favorite paintings was interacted in that way, either destroyed completely, whatever, and they've already been reproduced ad nauseum online. So if they get fully destroyed, I can still look at them, right? And they'll probably just make it, make a life-size version of it. We'll look at that painting and think, wow, now we can just look at reproductions. It's going to add more to that painting, at least in my case, in my perception of it. Okay, Sean, but what if people destroy your painting? You know what? If someone destroys my painting or my art, I'd be happy. Not because it's insured, it's not. I don't have that much artworks, but if it stirred enough people, if my art makes it so that someone thinks that by burning it or by whatever, destroying it, it will accomplish whatever it is, then yeah, good. Because I've done, I think, 2 artworks so far, maybe 3. We've had a little events here and there, and once the artwork is engaged with at the beginning, and even then it's not that great engagement, It's funny, it's great, haha, nice, but then the artwork dies. So if someone wants to destroy it, go ahead. You know, if it can make the artwork, like, if someone's mad at it, and like, to me, destroying an artwork in itself is a performance, right? And it actualizes the original artwork. So yeah, go ahead, destroy my artwork. In conclusion, I'm really not that bothered by Venus being vandalized. It didn't actually get vandalized. It was the glass. Even if it was vandalized, though, as it was in the past by suffragettes, I wouldn't care either. I don't care for the original artwork in the first place, but more importantly, I don't think that criticizing environmental action, when the consequences of that action are negligible, actually helps the movement at all. Yes, I understand a lot of people are gonna be pissed at it. Good. I think that's what we want. That's what we should want. I've made my case. But don't do crimes. Obviously. I wouldn't want people to get inspired and then there's like a mass movement of people getting really, really riled up and really, really violent, forcing people to do something about climate change for once. That would be illegal. Stop it.